let me know when I can start.
Yeah, you can start now, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this morning's session of Srimad Bhagavatam. As usual, before we begin, we will sing the prayers, Jai Radha Madhava. Is there any volunteers to sing today? Would anyone like to sing Jai Radha Madhava?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Would you like to?
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Sada Giri Bhagwan ki jai Sham Sundar Bhagwan ki jai
Jai
Bhagwan ki jai Jai Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maya ki jai
Jai
Krishna Bhagwan ki jai Jai Shri Panchatattva Bhagwan ki jai Jai Shri Gaur Sai ki jai Jai Shri Guru Parampara ki jai Jai Shri Jagat Guru Vedanta Prabhupada ki jai Jai Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai
Jai
Hare
Hari Bol. Thank you very much for that beautiful song. Now, as usual, before we continue, we will be reading from Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita. Let's go to the place where we were day before yesterday. So we had stopped with the letter written to Gandhiji by Srila Prabhupada. Let me just minimize this. Okay. So I'll just continue reading from here. There was no reply. A month later, Gandhi announced that he would fast until death unless India made a payment of 550 million rupees to Pakistan, a previous condition of the partition agreement. At first, Hindu refugees from Pakistan demonstrated outside Gandhi's darkened room, chanting, "Let Gandhi die." But as he fasted, each day closer to death, he aroused the heartfelt concern of the nation, and the government leaders repaid the money to Pakistan. Then great crowds approached him, chanting, "Let Gandhi live." Meanwhile, Hindu-Muslim violence continued. On January 30th, the day after he had drafted a new constitution for the Congress party, Gandhi took his evening meal, worked at his spinning wheel, then walked towards his evening prayer meeting and was shot 3 times in the chest. He died crying out the name of God, Hey Ram. Abhay's letter of the previous month suddenly read like a prophecy, but it had not been read by the person for whom it had been intended. When the directors of the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial National Fund invited suggestions on how to commemorate Gandhi's life and work, Abhay wrote to them and simultaneously to Vallabhbhai Patel, India's Deputy Prime Minister, proposing the Gandhian way to use the funds. Gandhi's whole life was dedicated to the service of humanity at large, with special interest for raising the moral standard. His later activities showed that he was equal to everyone, and all the people of the world knew him more as a spiritual leader than as a mere politician. Devotion to Godhead was his ultimate aim, and when I say that his sacred memory should be perpetrated not in the ordinary way, but in the Gandhian way, I mean that fitting respects to his memory will be done in the following manner. Abhay wrote of a Mahatma Gandhi rarely described, Gandhi as a Vaishnava. Despite his pressing political activities, Gandhi had never missed his daily prayer meetings in the evenings. Even at the time of his assassination, he had been on his way to attend his daily kirtan. Abhay stressed that it was because of Gandhi's regular participation in congregational prayer that he had been strong in his work to raise the moral standard of humanity. Gandhiji, minus his spiritual activities, Abhay wrote, is an ordinary politician, but actually he was a saint amongst the statesmen. Abhay wrote that it had been Lord Chaitanya who had originated the congregational chanting of the names of Krishna and Ram, and his followers, the 6 Goswamis, had left a wealth of literature for discussion and understanding. The Memorial Fund Board should take this lesson from Mahatmaji's practical life and develop it on a large scale. Therefore, one fitting memorial to Mahatma Gandhi would be to institute daily congregational readings from the Bhagavad Gita. When people's spiritual instincts were kindled by daily prayer meetings, then they would develop the highest qualities in their character. Abhay had a second suggestion. Gandhi was known for his attempts to enable the lower classes to enter the temples, and in Noakhali, he had installed the deity of Radha and Krishna for the ordinary man to worship. Although this was generally taken as a side issue of Gandhi's work, Abhay took it as the essence, that Gandhi's was a theistic movement. Abhay explained that although there were hundreds and thousands of temples in India, they were not being properly managed, and therefore educated citizens were neglecting them. In the original Vedic culture, the purpose of the temples had been to nurture spiritual culture. If the temples of India could be reorganized as vital spiritual centers, then the disturbed minds of the day could be trained for life's higher duties. Such education and practice, Abhay wrote, can help man in realizing the existence of God, without whose sanction, according to Mahatma Gandhi, not a blade of grass moves. He also referred to Gandhi's Harijan movement, which most people saw as Gandhi's humanitarian effort to grant equal rights to untouchables, whom Gandhi had recognized as Harijan, people of God. Abhay stressed that this was also an essentially spiritual aspect of Gandhi's life. But rather than simply rubber stamping an untouchable as Harijan, Abhay argued there must be a systematic program for elevating people of the lower classes. This program was taught in the Bhagavad Gita and could best be applied under the guidance of a bona fide devotee of the Lord. Abhay volunteered to take up the work on behalf of the Memorial Board. If the board, in attempting to commemorate Gandhi's efforts and accomplishments, neglected the essential spiritual aspects of Gandhi's life, Abhay warned, his memory will soon be dead, as has been the lot of other politicians. Perhaps they saw Abhay as another opportunist seeking money or as a sectarian religionist, but Abhay saw himself as a lowly servant of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Seeing certain Vaishnava qualities in the character of Mahatma Gandhi, Abhay took the opportunity to introduce his spiritual master's message to the world, and by so doing, he paid tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, praising him as a great devotee interested in kirtan, temple worship, and elevating unfortunates to become people of God. Hare Krishna, can I stop there?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is my screen still visible?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. So before we begin, let's say our Mangalacharan invocation prayers. Om Ajnanaatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vishramba Madhava Swaminiti Namine Gurum Gauram Girishrestham Yo Vishrambhena Sevate Madhavam Tulasi Ramakrishna Kirti Karamstuve Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yatkripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam Shri Gurum Dinataranam Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam tato jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Before going further, acknowledging Srila Prabhupada for his greatest contribution, his books, without which I would not have been able to prepare or speak anything today. So thank you to Srila Prabhupada for all his various books, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and many, many more. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, verses 35 and 36. Devarshi Pitra Gandharva Siddha Charana Pannagaha Kinnarapsaraso Martyaha Khaga Bhutanyanikashaha Yagneshwara Dhiya Ragnya Vagbittanjali Bhaktitaha Sabhajita Yayu Sarve Vaikuntan Nugatastataha Devarshi Pitra Gandharva Siddha Charana Pannagaha Kinnarapsaraso Martyaha Khaga Bhutanyanekashaha Yagneshwara Dhiya Ragnya Vagbittanjali Bhaktitaha Sabhajita Yayu Sarve Vaikuntanugataha Tataha Devarshi Pitra Gandharva Siddha Charana Pannagaha Kinnarapsaraso Martyaha Khaga Bhutanyanekashaha Yagneshwara Dhiya Ragnya Vagbittanjali Bhaktitaha Sabhajita Yayu Sarve Vaikuntanugataha. Would anyone like to read these verses?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam.
Dandot Pranam Prabhu, thank you very much.
Devarshi Pita Gandharva Siddha Charana Panaga Kinkara Psharo Martaya Khaga Bhutani Aneksha Yagneshwara Dhiya Ragna Bhaga Vitanjali Bhaktiya Shavajita Yau Sharve Vaikanta Anugatastataha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Would anyone else like to try?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am trying as well.
Thank you, Mataji.
Devarshi Pitir Gandharva Siddha Charana Panangaha Kinnarapsaro Mrityui Khaga Bhutani Anekasaha Yagneshwara Dhiya Ragya Vagvitanjali Bhaktitaha Sabhajita Vayo Sarve Vaikunthanugatastatah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Would anyone else like to try? Okay, so should we move on to the next, which is the synonyms, word by word translation? Does anybody want to read this, or?
Mataji, your
Should
screen doesn't, you're not showing
Okay.
the verse and the synonyms on your screen.
Okay. Yeah, it's some problem there. It keeps dropping. I'll just share it again. Is it visible now?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay. Would someone like to read the synonyms?
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Deva, the demigods, Rishi, the great sages, Pita, inhabitants of Pitrilo, Gandharva, inhabitants of Gandharvalo, Chitta, inhabitants of Chittalo, Charana, inhabitants of Charanalo, Panaga, inhabitants of the planets where serpents live, Kinnara, inhabitants of Kinnara planets, Apsara, inhabitants of Apsaralo, Martoi, inhabitants of earthly planets, Khaga, the birds, Bhutani, other living entities, Aneksha, many, Yagna Ishara Diya, with the perfect intelligence of thinking as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, Ragna, by the king, Bhakt, with sweet words, Vitta, well, Anjali, with folded hands, Bhaktita, in a spirit of devotional service, Shabajita, being properly worshipped, Yau, when, Sarve, all, Vaikunta, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, Anugata, followers, Tata, from that place.
Thank you, Prabhu. Is there anyone that can read the translation?
Yes, Mataji, I will.
Thank you, Mataji.
King Prithu worshipped the demigods, the great sages, the inhabitants of Pitraloka, the inhabitants of Gandharva Loka, and those of Siddha Loka, Charana Loka, Panaga Loka, Kinnara Loka, Apsara Loka, the earthly planets, and the planets of the birds. He also worshipped many other living entities who presented themselves in the sacrificial arena. With folded hands, he worshipped all these, as well as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the personal associates of the Lord, by offering sweet words and as much wealth as possible. After this function, they all went back to their respective abodes, following in the footsteps of Lord Vishnu. Thank you.
Thank
Hare
you very
Krishna.
much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Is there anyone that can read the purport?
Hare
Or should I
Krishna,
read it?
Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mataji. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In modern so-called scientific society, the idea is very prevalent that there is no life on other planets, but that only on this earth do living entities with the intelligence and scientific knowledge exist. The Vedic literatures, however, do not accept this foolish theory. The followers of Vedic wisdom are fully aware of various planets inhabited by varieties of the living entities, such as the demigods, the sages, the pitas, the Gandharvas, the Panagas, the Kinnaras, the Charanas, the Siddhas, and the Apsaras. The Vedas give information that in all planets, not only within this material sky, but also in the spiritual sky, there are varieties of living entities. Although all these living entities are of one spiritual nature, in quality, the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they have they have varieties of bodies due to embodiment of spirit soul by 8 material elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego. In the spiritual world, however, there is no such distinction between the body and the embodied. In the material world, distinctive features are manifested in different types of bodies in various planets. We have full information from Vedic literature that in each and every planet, both material and spiritual, there are living entities of varied intelligence. The Earth is one of the planets of Bhurloka planetary system. There are 6 planetary systems about Bhurloka and 7 planetary systems below it. Therefore, the entire universe is known as Chaturdasha Bhuvana, indicating that it has 14 different planetary systems. Beyond the planetary systems in the material sky, there is another sky, which is known as Paravyoma or spiritual sky, where there are spiritual planets. The inhabitants of those planets engage in varieties of loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which include different rasas or relationships known as Dasya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, and above all, Parakiya Rasa. This Parakiya Rasa or paramour love is prevalent in Krishna Loka, where Lord Krishna lives. The planet is also called Goloka Vrindavana. And although Lord Krishna lives there perpetually, he also expands himself in millions and trillions of forms. In one of such forms, he appears on the material planet in particular place known as Vrindavana Dham, where he displays his original pastimes of Goloka Vrindavana in the spiritual sky in order to attract the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. What a wonderful purport and describing the structure of the cosmos. Let me see. The spiritual perspective of the structure of the cosmos, and so beautifully Prabhupada has taken us from the Chaturdasha, from the lower planetary systems right up to the spiritual world, and what is there and what activities one does there, and why Krishna comes here to attract us back home, back to Godhead. So from there, let's just see. So before coming to today's verse, let's see the history thus far. So we have seen this over the last few months, the story of King Prithu. We saw how his unconventional, unusual beginnings from the body of King Vena, he rose up to be an exemplary administrator, caring for his citizens' needs. They didn't have food grains. He got the resources from Mother Earth to feed them, to look after their material needs, and then to look after their spiritual needs also. Even material needs, he set up town planning, so many things he did for them materially and spiritually also. He was always looking for their upliftment. So he embarked on doing this 100 horse sacrifices or Ashwamedha Yajna for the spiritual benefit of his citizens, for the general population at large. And we know the story of how when he was doing the 100th sacrifice, Lord Indra became very, very insecure because he thought Prithu Maharaj is going to take away his role, his kingdom as king of heaven. And so he started stealing the horse repeatedly, again and again. Each time he would steal it, and King Prithu's son Vijdashva would return it back. But each time he spared Indra's life because Indra was dressed as a fake sadhu, as a holy man. And this way he kept doing it. And finally, King Prithu decided that he will kill him himself directly. And then the sages in the sacrifice say, no, we will put him in the sacrificial fire. We will bring him by the power of our mantras, and we will kill him by putting him in the sacrificial fire. But of course, at that time, we have the appearance of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma as the supreme head of the material world, the creator. He comes down at the sacrificial arena and he instructs King Prithu to stop this. He says if he tries to deter Indra again and again, Indra is going to create more and more wrong sampradayas, false sampradayas of false sadhus, and that's going to create more disturbance in the world, and his creation will be disturbed. And moreover, Indra is required at present for his duties, his administrative duties. And so he tells Prithu Maharaj, even though Prithu Maharaj was in the right, he tells Prithu Maharaj to stop. And then we see the great King Prithu's response, which is he immediately stopped. He immediately listened to Brahma's words and stopped trying to continue his 100th sacrifice. And then we see the divine appearance there at the sacrificial arena of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu does not, we've never heard him appearing at anyone's sacrifice. But King Prithu's sacrifice was an exception, was so attracted by King Prithu's exemplary behavior, his great behavior, that he appeared there himself. And he then instructs Prithu Maharaj. He tries to give him some solace and tries to tell him, I've brought Indra with me here now. Please forgive Indra. And please do not, you're such a great person. You've got such great, merits. And why do you want to let go of that by, falling down again to the material plane? So he instructs King Prithu to basically to forgive Indra and carry on his duties as an administrative head, following his instructions. And again, we see King Prithu, how beautifully he responds to this by, he forgives Indra immediately. Indra is ashamed, and he falls at his feet, and King Prithu immediately just forgets that and just embraces him. And then he offers very beautiful prayers to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu had offered him a benediction. So King Prithu says that the benediction he wants. Does anyone want to share what was King Prithu's request from the Lord?
Yeah, just to give him millions of years and tongues that he can chant and hear the names of the Lord the first time.
Yes.
Activities.
And in the association of devotees. And then he says he wants to, he wants to do menial service to the Lord's lotus feet, like Lakshmi Devi. And then finally he says that, actually, I don't know what to ask. You are, as a father does to his son, the son may not know what to ask, but you know what is best for me. So you give me what you think is best for me. And with all these, beautiful and exemplary behavior of King Prithu, his humility, his surrender, all that attracted the Lord so much that he, even though he was ready to leave, he actually stays back for some more time. And now it brings us to today's verse, where we see, it's a beautiful scene there. The Lord Vishnu is now ready to depart. And as he's ready to depart, so are all the other inhabitants of all the other lokas, all the planetary systems, the Charana Loka, Pitra Loka, the Gandharva Loka, the Apsara Loka, different places. They've all come. As we know, this 100th sacrifice of Maharaj Prithu was no ordinary matter. It was a great event. And obviously there would have been invites sent to people from all different planets. All the dignitaries from all these different worlds have come here and to see the sacrifice, to participate in the sacrifice. But now they're all getting ready to leave. And when they're getting ready to leave, we are seeing King Prithu's, again, his beautiful behavior, how he shows respect. Not only respect, he worships all of them in the spirit of devotion, and a spirit of devotion to Lord Vishnu. And then he sends them off with sweet words, with wealth, as much wealth as he can give, as well as with folded hands. That's what we see in this shloka today. So as usual, all of these shlokas of Srimad Bhagavatam, each and every word of the Srimad Bhagavatam is here to uplift us, to inspire us to pursue the highest goal, the supreme goal of going back home to Godhead, to serve Lord Krishna. So again, this verse also ties in with that same theme. The theme was Maharaj Parikshit actually is listening to Srimad Bhagavatam on the banks of the Ganga, and he's being instructed by Shukadev Goswami for this purpose, to uplift him, to make him realize the highest goal. And so too for us, when we read this, we must remember that all these shlokas and instructions, all these narrations we hear, these stories we hear, are all here to uplift us. So that's where we are. Now, we see in this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he's talking about the 14 planetary systems of the material world, and he's talking about the different planets and the different, even the verse itself, we're talking about all the inhabitants of the different planets. And this narration of, or this reference to all these different planetary systems and all these inhabitants of these different planets is there not just in this verse, but it's there in several places in all our scriptures. So I just referred to a few of them from Chaitanya Charitamrita. We hear in the Antilila, we see in this verse, Antilila chapter 9, verse 8, Let me see if it comes up. Yes. So we see here, I'll just read this verse. Manushera Veshe Deva Gandharva Kinnara Sapta Patalera Yata Daitya Vishadhara. So saying the inhabitants of the 7 higher planetary systems, including the demigods, the Gandharvas and the Kinnaras, and the inhabitants of the 7 lower planetary systems, Patala Loka, including the demons and the serpentine living entities, all visited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the dress of human beings. So that's a reference from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where all these different denizens of different planetary systems are visiting Lord Chaitanya. Similarly, we see other places in Bhagavatam as well, Canto 4, Chapter 6, verse 9, description of Kailash, where there all these different people or personalities from different planets are described. Then again in Canto 10, we see after killing of Dantavakra and Shalva, how they're all these planetary systems people are coming to praise the Lord and his activities. And then, of course, we see in Canto 10, Chapter 3, verse 6, where the birth of Lord Sri Krishna. Again, we see Jagu Kinnara Gandharvas. Oh, sorry, let me see if it comes out. Yeah, here it is. Jagu Kinnara Gandharvas Tushtu Vuhu Siddha Charanaha Vidyadharyascha Nandritur Apsarobhi Samammuda. Again, we see the Kinnaras and Gandharvas began to sing auspicious songs. The Siddhas and Charanas offered auspicious prayers, and the Vidyadharis, along with the Apsaras, began to dance in jubilation. So this is on the appearance of Lord Sri Krishna. Again, there's a description of all these different personalities from the different planetary systems. So, and again, of course, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, there's a description of some of these personalities when we describe the universal form of the Lord. So we hear all this, all these different planetary systems and a structure of the universe, of the cosmos, as Srila Prabhupada has explained the purport, the Chatu planetary systems, the 7 below the earthly planetary systems, the 6 above it, and that all these planetary systems are inhabited. And then all these inhabitants have different bodily features and bodily structures. They've got different coverings on them, but they're all souls. They're covered by material coverings, but they're all spiritual entities. And then we see that then from there, Paravyoma, beyond the material sky is the spiritual sky, Paravyoma, where there are spiritual planets. Again, there are living entities, and these living entities are engaged in service of the Supreme Lord in all his various forms, millions of forms he has, and they're serving him in different rasas or different mellows, different moods. So this description of the material and the spiritual world, or the cosmos, as per our spiritual scriptures, we see is the screen being seen, or can you see the screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, but some days there's a technical problem, it keeps dropping. So anyway, the point I was trying to make is many times when we describe this, especially when there's a younger audience, there's an evident elephant in the room, so to speak, where young people, they go to university, they go to college, they're hearing a structure of the cosmos, a structure of the universe, very different from what we read in the scriptures. And many times, many times they can't relate to it, and they feel maybe this is wrong because what they're being taught in school and university is correct, because that is scientific, so to speak. So just to understand this, let's just see some examples, some everyday examples. So I've got a picture here on the screen. Can you see it?
Yes, Mataji.
What is this picture of? Can anyone guess?
Snowflake?
Snowflake, yes, it's a snowflake. That's good. And what is this?
Ice-covered mountains.
Yes, 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 yes. So that is also snow, isn't it?
Yes, no.
That's also a
Yes.
picture of snow, a different picture of the snow. So the first picture is also snow, it's a snowflake. And the other picture is also of snow, but in a landscape, right? Different
Yeah.
views, same thing.
Yes.
Now, what is this?
This is an owl.
What is it?
This is an owl.
An owl. Okay. Any other views? What this is? To me, it looks like something like a something to frighten people on Halloween. Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
This is what it is. What is this?
And
And
Living entities? Are these living entities?
they are living entities, but this particular picture, the one that frightening picture you can see of a, looks so devilish,
then
horrible. This is actually a picture of the ant in close up. When you look at the face of the ant, this is how it looks. Huh? So can we, when we, so each of these pictures is depicting, so the snowflake and the snow, different perspectives give you different views. And you can't, from looking at one, you can't say that the other one is also the same. Like when you look at the ant, you can't say that this is the face of the ant. It looks so weird and so wonderful. So similarly, how we have different perspectives. So when we have different goals, so suppose you want to study the snowflake as mathematicians do, then you will study fractals. Then you will see the snowflake with its design, symmetry. You will see maybe the equation that defines it. Maybe if you're an artist, you see the beautiful, it looks like a rangoli. You might see that. Yeah. And if you are a weather person, or if you're looking at climatic conditions to go on a hike in the mountains, you might look at this picture and say, oh yeah, I better be prepared. I better carry the right things. And so your study of the snowflake or the snow would be different based on what you want to study or what you want to realize. Similarly, if you're a student of of zoology or anatomy, you might study this picture of this face of this ant, or you might look at it a completely different way. And if you are looking at maybe is there sugar dropped on the floor, you might consider the ant looking as an ant as we normally see it on the ground walking around. So our perspectives are very different depending on our goals. So what we want to study, what we want to realize, will decide what we see or what we're looking out for in the universe. So similarly, when there are these different worldviews, the scientific worldview or the Vedic worldview or the spiritual worldview, they're all different, but the purposes are different. So, for example, the spiritual cosmology, we have, as we described, the material world and its variegated population, so many different kinds of living entities in the material world. And then the spiritual world with the varieties of relationships and services available in the spiritual world. That is our spiritual cosmology. Now, I was listening to a podcast by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu and Hari Parshad Prabhu. And the topic was, it says, intellectual diversity in spiritual understanding. So there, they mentioned that even within the same Vedic text, you have this spiritual cosmology, which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And you have another cosmology in the light of astrology. To study astrology, there is a cosmology which is not the same as the spiritual cosmology we study in the Bhagavatam. So to study astrology, that is also a science, and that's also in the Vedas, that's also authorized by the Vedas. But the cosmology there is different because they are studying something different and with a different purpose. And we had a session on astrology by His Holiness Bhanu Maharaj also when he was here. And that's also when he mentioned that the astrology cosmology is slightly different from the spiritual cosmology that we know in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, we can understand that cosmology in terms of modern science is very different from what we study in the Bhagavatam. But it doesn't mean that it is invalidated because it's got its place. The modern scientists, they are trying to understand the material phenomena, the natural phenomena around us. They're trying to use it for a certain purpose to kind of use the resources of this material nature. They need to study modern science and cosmology in their terms. And we should not say that, okay, these are the only models, these are what we know probably, but maybe in the future, there might be potential different models for artificial intelligence, maybe. Some new model might come up. We don't know. But basically, what we must understand is that there's a reconciliation of all these versions. We understand as devotees that there are different dimensions of being, there are different perspectives. Not one of them is wrong. They all serve their purpose and they all are useful in their own ways. The only thing, what, especially for young people, when they study their science, it's good to study science, but remember that that is not the only way. It shouldn't be that it's only my way or the highway. So every way is required for a certain purpose, and the scientist way is useful for the purpose of manipulating this material world and for using different technologies. So that was the first aspect of first point I wanted to say from this verse. Another point which we see not so much in the purport, Prabhupada hasn't talked about it, but he talks about it in the verse itself, in the word-to-word translation, that how King Prithu received and treated different people who arrived there. So, when we also have so many events we have where we invite dignitaries and we invite people, the general people, to come visit our temple. So we had the 50th anniversary of Sri Radha Giridhari's installation. And we had 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada leaving for the US, and 50th anniversary of ISKCON. So many different big events, and each time we invite dignitaries, we invite the local people, we invite everyone to come to our temple and to participate in the festivities. So how do we receive them? How do we receive the dignitaries? Does anyone want to say? Share.
Yeah, by warm welcoming.
Warm welcome, yes. And we offer them garlands, right?
Yeah.
There's someone to receive them. We offer them maha garlands. Then we give them offer them some water, some prasadam, some programs, and then we glorify them.
Yes.
They're not, by conventional standards, we'll not say that they're devotees, but we for that time we treat them really very well, and we send them off also very well. We walk up to the car to send them off, right?
Yeah.
And similarly, even the ordinary people, when they come to the temple, we invite them. There's a festival, there's a Sunday feast, please come. And then there's someone waiting at the foyer to receive them. And then there's someone, they come into the temple, and the deities, their hosts are there to receive them. They're so beautifully dressed, so dazzling and resplendent in their beautiful jewelry and their clothes. It's a feast for their eyes. And then they sit down, they listen to some Krishna Katha. It's a feast for their ears. And then after that is over, they go down for prasadam, and they serve prasadam, and that is a feast for their tongues and for their stomach. So this is how we receive and treat different people. And similarly, in this verse, we are seeing, how dignitaries from various planetary systems have come and how King Prithu treats them. So in the verse itself, we see these words here, Yagna Ishvara Dhiya. Let's go back to the verse, the word by word translation. Yagna Ishvara Dhiya. Here. So it says with the perfect intelligence of thinking as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So King Prithu worshipped these personalities with a perfect intelligence. So he thought they're part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Let me treat them very well. Yeah. And with what? With sweet words. With sweet words, Vak, Vitta, wealth, and Anjali, with folded hands, and in a spirit of devotional service. So this is how he received them, and he treated them, and he sent them off with wealth, with prayers, with folded hands, with sweet words. He worshipped all of them, and being properly worshipped, they then went back to their different worlds. So this is something I found very interesting in this particular verse and the translation, that this is how we receive and treat different people. And we also see the similar kind of in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord himself, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's in Jagannath Puri, and all the Navadvip devotees are going from Navadvip, traveling all the way to Jagannath Puri, and with so much hardship. And when they're coming there, the Lord has prepared himself, he has prepared to welcome them personally. He has made garlands for them. He has got chandan for them. and sandalwood pulp. And he's also got, he's arranged for a place for them to stay. He's arranged for food, for prasadam for them. And so, so kindly and so, so welcoming to these devotees from Navadvip. So similarly, I was thinking this is the behavior when we welcome and we treat other people very well, receive and treat them very well. Then this behavior towards one another, how we treat each other, it attracts the Supreme Lord's mercy. Even more than, in this case, like King Prithu. It was not so much the 100 sacrifices of Lord Prithu that attracted the Lord, as much as his beautiful behavior with everyone, with his citizens, with the visitors, with dignitaries, the guests, and with King Indra, with Lord Brahma. All this, his behavior towards everyone attracted the Supreme Lord's mercy. So with that, I'd like to conclude today. I didn't, just two main points. One, with the structure of the cosmos and how we can understand it and how we can explain it, especially to the younger generation. And the second, with how we treat each other and how that's what attracts the Supreme mercy, Supreme Lord's mercy. So with that, I'd like to conclude today's class. If there's any other points, reflections, comments, or if any corrections, also feel free to share here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
The wonderful text and wonderful description you have taken up is a very, very good point to understand. For the people in general, it is an indication that this material is not what we actually think of. There are other golakas in this material which we are not aware of. And this verse is pointing out that this is not the only world, there are so many worlds around. And sometimes we see then how this TFO comes. So those are the things indicates that this material is not limited or is not the only one. There are so many lokas around, and that is the proof Bhagavatam is giving us.
That's right. Yes, Prabhu.
To this material world, by seeing our feature and our behavior and look, we should not understand that there is nothing beyond this. So this is a great lesson for the scientific people who studies this cosmology, and it's very good. It's nicely explained by you. And the other things, how Priti Maharaj understand them thing and greet them with this Bhak, Dikta and Anjali. That is very, very important. And fortunately, we Indians especially, those who are related to India, they know how to greet the guest comes in their house in the same way we do. We greet them, welcome them inside, have something, whatever we have in our house, offer them, and while going back, we just with folded hands greet them again to see us. So this is our culture, which is already enveloped through our parampara, and still we are maintaining. So we don't know what is the subject matter behind it, but this is Shastra tells us, and this is the way how to deal with the guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Nicely summarized.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Very nice class. It's always difficult for me to understand the planetary systems. And I always feel difficult. Means I read, but I cannot take it. But you nicely described how means in different planets and different personalities are there, and they all are greeting to Lord Vishnu. Very nicely you divided in the two parts. And next is that how we should greet our guests. Very nicely with the Bhag, Vidya Anjali in Bhakti. Very nice class, Mataji. It's
Thank you.
Quite. When I was also reading, it's really, I'm feeling a bit hard. But
Yes.
from your discussion, yeah, I got that at least two parts. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank
Hare
you very
Krishna.
much. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. It's difficult for me also, these planetary systems.
Yes. Sometimes when I read, then I will understand after that it's gone from my head.
Actually, that example, the elephant. So the 6 blind men, they touch the elephant in different parts and they get different experience. So one says it's a rope, one says it's a pillar, one says it's a snake, but actually the elephant is something totally different, and only the spiritual seer can see how to use the elephant to transcend the elephant, to go beyond it. So the spiritual seer can see the cosmos as it is and see how we can transcend it.
Yes.
But it's not wrong to use the different, if you know limited, you can use it. You can use it for science, and then can use the technology to get directions in the car, to get the weather forecast. It's also good.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Danvat Pranam. Thank you so much for explaining, as Sita Anandini Mataji also mentioned, the cosmos and planetary systems very logically, and especially I really like the part with the comparison and the explanation you gave between what science is taught now and what our scripture said. Very apt. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, if there are any other questions or comments, so can we end for today? Okay, I think we can end. So, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhya patatanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Ananta Vaishnavavrinda ki
Jai. Her grace Tulasi Sevya
Sevya Mataji ki Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Granthara
Have a nice
Srimad
day, everyone.
Bhagavatam ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees.